Welcome to Career Tools. Today's cast, Asking Your Manager for Help, Chapter 2, How. The questions this cast answers are, how should I ask my manager for help? Should I ask my manager for help? And is asking for help normal? If you'd like answers to these questions and more, keep listening. As far as products and services at Manager Tools, this one is pretty exciting. We've recently begun our Manager Tools Executive Speaker Series. Monthly, we're meeting where people from the Manager Tools community address our group and talk through some of their personal strategies for success as a leader within their organizations. If you're looking for a way to grow your career and grow your network, the Executive Speaker Series is the best way to do it. So, sign up today on our website at manager-tools.com. You won't regret it. Amanda, we are going to continue guidance that I want to say you and Wendy started back in
correct.
July. Okay, cool. So, folks, this is the second chapter in a series about asking your manager for help. The first part of this guidance addressed how to ask your manager for help, and it was released earlier this year in July 2023. So if you've not listened to that part, you may want to go back. But essentially, we know it can be difficult, especially when you're new to the workforce, maybe even new to a job itself. It can be difficult to know when you're supposed to ask your manager for help. And because we've recently covered when to ask, now it would appear, if you're listening to this one, you've decided you in fact do need help. So we're going to cover today how to ask your manager for help. So, Amanda, what's our outline?
First, we're going to consider your manager's preferences. Then we're going to ask for more time than you think you need. Next is what to say. And then keep in mind, this is your manager's job.
All right. So the first bit, consider your manager's preferences. Now, Amanda, we're talking here obviously about asking your manager for help. So asking for help in the way that makes sense to your manager is a good idea. However, I would be clear, audience member who's listening to this podcast right now, these are some pretty good tips for all the people basically all the time. If you want help from anybody, it's always best to consider their preferences first. And in this case, being it's your manager, if your manager prefers to, let's say, read the detail of a problem and then be briefed on those details, you're probably going to want to send them an email first. However, if your manager prefers to talk a problem through and then have a follow-up email with all the details which they can refer to after, you're going to want to ask for a quick time for a meeting in their office or by phone or by video. And if you are in a position where you're not sure which of those two managers your manager is, there's a podcast for that. It is called, Is Your Boss a Reader or a Listener? And that will help you decide or make a decision about which type of person your manager actually is.
And there's even a shortcut for this. It's to look at their email. If you receive short emails, this really means, and I mean really short emails, like 1 or 2 lines, even single or 2 words. Likely they're a listener. If your manager does not send any emails,
that's also a clue.
Right? Or doesn't respond to your emails, likely a listener. However, if they like to send long emails, they're going to likely be a reader. The closer you get to honoring the way your manager likes to consume information, the more likely it is that you'll end up with the outcome you want.
Exactly. And it's not just about how does your manager like to consume information. That's a big part of it. That's a really important piece of the puzzle. It's also about timing, right? You want to pay attention to the timing of your requests. So, for example, I think to myself, what else is going on in terms of their day, maybe the date it is specifically? Some managers are really receptive in the morning. And I mean, most people, frankly, again, these things can be used for any number of people. Lots of people are more receptive in the morning. But also, it's things like, what else is going on with the team? If you've got a peer and they're clearly struggling with something that's much more important than the small question you've got, it's probably a bad time to ask. So you want to ask at a time that's convenient for your manager, but I would also say, Amanda, is the most persuasive for your manager, right? You don't want to ask when they're going to be dismissive because they don't have time and they're in a rush and there's something more important, or it's late in the afternoon on Friday and we're all trying to get out of here on time. Rather, asking at a time that's better for them.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, especially those Friday afternoons.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh, don't
when
ask
people are
on
fresh
Friday
in the
afternoon.
morning,
Yeah.
haven't really dug into anything. Those tend to be the better times
Yeah.
for sure. Now we're going to talk about ask for more time than you think you need. And this is a really interesting one because when we think about asking for time, we've all heard that, oh, I just need a minute. In fact,
Yeah, right.
if you're going to ask for help, it's going to take longer than a minute
Yeah.
in most cases.
It's never a minute, guys. Never.
Never. Have you ever had someone ask for a minute and then they sit down in your office? You're like, this is not a sit conversation if it's a minute.
No. What?
Right?
60 seconds is not worth sitting for, friend.
Yeah. No, absolutely
Clearly,
not.
I've said yes to the wrong thing. I've been tricked.
Right? So never ask for just a minute to help resolve your problem because it never takes only a minute. It might take 5, 10, 15, or even longer.
Mm-hmm.
When we ask for a minute and it takes longer, it really doesn't do your problem justice and it's pretty inconvenient. I know we say that because we want to make it seem like it's not a big deal. Like, oh, I don't need too much of your time, but
Yeah, this won't be a big inconvenience. Don't worry about it.
yeah, but it's misguided because you want not only yourself, but your manager to know how much time is involved so they can block it off, so they're not rushing off. So really think about your request when you're asking for time. How long do you really need?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe persuasion's not the right word for this cast, but back to the purpose of the conversation, or back to what I said earlier, the persuasion piece. If you're going to take far longer than they think that you need to ask this question, immediately they're going to be irritated. So again, are you going to get what you want? Are you going to be as persuasive as possible if you've already gone way over time compared to what you suggested it would take? No, you're not. So we would suggest that instead, you more accurately estimate how long it's going to take you, one, to explain the problem, but then for the back and forth of it, right? The conversation of it, the additional dialogue of it, the elaboration of it. Now, I can completely understand. There's definitely folks out there that are like, I got no idea. Awesome. Makes complete sense. If you have no idea, get an accurate estimate by talking through out loud in an empty room the problem you intend to talk your manager through out loud in their office. Time, how long it takes you to say that thing, explain that situation, and then triple that estimate, and then ask your manager for that tripled estimate plus 5 minutes. And this sounds like a lot of time, but no. Again, it's not just for the explanation of the problem. Tripling the time allows for the time it takes to be asked questions about the problem, be given answers to the questions about the problem itself, and it's going to mean you've got more than enough time. You are more accurately estimating how long it will actually take, including the back and forth of the conversation.
So the idea is you ask for more time than you need and to leave the meeting or call, giving your manager their time back.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't love getting their time back?
Exactly.
It feels good.
It does. It feels good. Think, we're going into this. Oh, Amanda, you and I literally just came out of a meeting that was booked for an
Yeah.
hour. And how long did it take us?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Boom. Didn't it feel like a reward? It felt like
Yeah.
a gift. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love getting time back.
Yeah. You can win a meeting, but I felt like we won the meeting.
You win that meeting.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you overestimate, that's okay. They will appreciate the time in return.
Absolutely. And so will you. So instead of having them rush to their next thing, give that time back or get through that meeting a little bit more leisurely, right? Don't rush through it. It's really a true kindness and it will help your reputation as a professional. And Sarah alluded to this earlier, but don't only use this for your manager or your boss. You can use it with your peers or anyone.
Exactly. All the people like time back. We all
Everyone.
like time back. Okay, so now the what to say bit. So Amanda and I are going to first explain to what to say, but going back to what we said earlier, your manager could be a reader manager or a listener manager, which means that you may be sending an email, you may be sending an instant message like in a Slack thing. It could be any number of communications, many of which are written. We're going to be reading out loud some of these examples. And note, if you are currently not a licensee, that means you are within the Manager Tools community in such a way that you can read show notes. It would be best to have show notes in front of you for this bit. That sounds weird, but note, reading these examples out loud. Amanda and I read them in advance and we're like, oof, this is going to be confusing. So we're going to read them and we're going to do our very, very best. However, if you are a licensee, you may want to print off these examples because it'll just give you a better idea of the explanations we're going through. So in terms of the what to say, before we even get to the actually what do I say, there are some things that you need to identify or come up with the answers to essentially, so that you have all of the information needed to have this communication. The things are how long you'll need for that conversation, what we just talked about, a description of the specific task, issue, or project, a time frame, like by when you need to have that conversation, essentially, a description of your specific challenge, and then the steps you've taken to address the problem itself.
And once you have identified those items, you can now start to write out those communications or figure out a way of how to ask. If you're going to do via like an instant message, like a Slack, you might say, can I get 30 minutes on your calendar to get some help with insert your specific challenge here? I've been working on it for 2 days and I think I need some help. I can't get insert challenge to work. I've tried. Insert the steps you've taken. I'm free this afternoon till 4 or all day long tomorrow apart from during our Scrum meeting.
Yeah. After you went through that, Amanda, I think everybody at home can now see why I was like, you know what, this is probably easier to read insert challenge here.
Yes, you can't see. I'm making the brackets
she's
with my
making
hands.
Air brackets, but it's only I can see it. So it's not as good as it should be. Okay, Amanda, while we're doing this, I'm going to take a screenshot so that when I post this on our social media channels, I have a picture of you making air brackets. Okay, so Amanda just went through an instant message, right? Like a Slack or a more, I'm going to call it informal written kind of communique. If though you're in a more formal workplace or you're asking for more time, you may consider instead sending an email. So what we would suggest the subject line say is request for assistance with insert specific issue here. There, air bracket. Okay, cool.
Air bracket.
All right. Then put in your email, dear manager's name, followed by paragraph. Please, could I get 30 minutes on your calendar to get your guidance with? And then here, insert the specific task or issue or project that you're dealing with. Next paragraph, over the past, insert here, time frame. I've been working on, insert here, briefly describe the task or the project involved. However, I've encountered a challenge with insert the specific problem or challenge you're facing in more detail here. Next paragraph. So far, I've attempted to resolve this by, and this is where you're going to insert or outline the steps you've taken to address the problem on your own. Next paragraph, next sentence. Despite these efforts, the issue persists, and I believe now it's necessary to seek your advice to avoid further complications or delays. Next paragraph. Your schedule is far more packed than mine, so I'll make myself available whenever is best for you. Followed by your name.
You know, it'd be really easy is to have the show notes and just insert all your problems. It's all written out for you.
Know. I agree. But
no air brackets.
Right? I like it. No air brackets. But I mean, we did it. For those of you
we did it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you're, I'm going to say uncertain in your writing of these communications, I mean, Amanda and I have given you an example of a Slack, an example of an email. We've not given you a whole ton to go on, though. And you might think, well, I'd like to get a little bit better at this, or I can't use those exact words in that exact order every single time. It seems a little bit monotonous. You wouldn't be wrong. So there's a couple of things you can do. One of which is go to forums like Stack Overflow. Now, not that we would suggest you go to Stack Overflow to ask your question and receive an answer. Rather, Stack Overflow is a forum of sorts where people go and ask questions and others in that community answer those questions being posed in the forum. And within that forum, what you'll find is the commentators there are quick to point out where the person who's asked the question hasn't provided enough context or specifics for the problem that they're looking to have solved. And we deal with this often, Amanda, when people write into what we call Reacher. Reach is our ticketing system. And sometimes in our forums as well, right? People ask a question and you're like, okay, but I don't have near enough information.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's that exact same kind of thing, right? It's shoot, I don't have enough information to answer your question the way your question has come across. So now we're in the position, or in this case, the Stack Overflow forum is in the position to say, I can't actually answer your question. I need more information. And going through and reading that Q&A, that back and forth in tools like Stack Overflow will give you a pretty good, I want to say, education on precision of communication, right? So just reading through some of that can kind of, I'm going to say, hone or sharpen your skills as they pertain to what kind of or how much information is required for me to ask a question that the person I'm asking an answer from can understand easily. That. And there are other ways. I mean, I spoke of forums, Amanda. Folks, if you aren't familiar, on the Manager Tools website, manager-tools.com, we have forums. And Amanda's responsible for the forums. So if you have a question that you're like, hey, I'd like to ask my manager about X, or I need help asking my manager for help on Y, if you put it in our forums, Amanda will probably respond and be the one to help you through it.
And we also have a lot of other great community members who put their opinions in the forums too to help out. We have a great community.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are other ways of getting this information. We have a podcast called Write, WRITE. Using Bluff is also a good method, right? Because unfortunately, what happens for many of us when we email, let's say, these questions will bury the lead. The question itself will be at the very, very bottom. And then the manager doesn't respond, not because they don't want to help, rather because they don't know there's a question there, because it's so buried in a pile of words that they can't find the question. So that's another thing to keep in mind, right? Right, using Bluff, one of our podcasts, is kind of helpful with that. But all of these are just kind of methods or ways to help you be more precise with your questions so that you can get better answers quicker.
Absolutely.
If you've been listening to us for any length of time, you've got to recognize the name Maggie. Maggie has been with Manager Tools for 16 years, and Maggie loves Clemson Tigers college football. She's definitely all in. And in respect to the coach, who is all about performance, what she also has learned is that relationship building is incredibly important. So, if you're a manager who needs professional assistance to help the people within your organization build effective relationships, you've come to the right place. Send Maggie an email. Her email address is maggie@manager-tools.com for more information. Go Tigers.
Now, the last thing we're going to cover is keep in mind this is your manager's job. Yes, we all have to ask for help at some point. We all need it. As their role, there's many facets, and one of them is to remove roadblocks that stand in the way of their staff doing work, getting those results, right? Whether it's a lack of resources or a lack of understanding, that's part of your manager's job to help you remove those obstacles. We live in a society that often praises self-reliance and independence, which can create a sense of hesitation or even guilt when it comes to seeking assistance. Yeah, you have that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to ask for help. It's a burden on others, but there are people that it is their job to help you. And that's your manager. We all want to work together to get results. So it's okay. It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I hate that this is true. And I know that it's true, folks, because I talk to managers all the time who say things to me like, well, I asked them to do something and they did it so wildly wrong, I had to take it back and do it myself. And what I say is, oh, yeah, they tried to do it on their own. They went off. They thought they knew what you wanted. They tried to do it on their own because they wanted to, I don't know, not show weakness or be independent, or they've got this. They know what they're doing. And then on the back end, the manager's frustrated. I'm like, oh, they just tried their really, really hardest because they wanted to prove they could do it by themselves. No, you should know because I talked to your manager and I know this to be true. Acknowledging that you need help is not a sign of weakness. It's an indication that you are willing to grow and learn and smart enough to know that you don't know everything. And your manager knows, especially if you're new, you don't know everything. You can't know everything. You've been here 2 weeks. Folks, everybody at some point or another encounters situations where the help of other people is absolutely required. And in terms of us in the workplace, that's what we're here to do. Help each other through. I mean, we don't say it, but know that it's true. Well, not necessarily 100%, but the reason many meetings exist is so that a group of people can get together to solve a problem that one person couldn't solve on their own. The existence of meetings should let you know, hey, more than one person is required to solve most of the problems in my world. So don't hesitate to ask.
And there's no need to apologize for seeking assistance. You're not burdening your manager by asking them to help you. You're asking them to do their job. However, expressing gratitude is essential. So saying thank you not only acknowledges the other person's effort, but it also helps create a culture of appreciation and respect.
Yeah.
It's always a nice thing to say thank you when spending someone's time, right? Even if it's a short time. Say thank you, be appreciative, and it's just professional.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I might go a little bit further on this one, Amanda. Not the thankful piece, but on the asking your manager for help piece. And it's essentially because, as a manager, I know in many cases, I would rather someone on my team call me and borrow, I'm going to call it 5 minutes of my time than waste 5 hours of their time trying to figure it out themselves. It's kind of
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right? Like,
I love that. Absolutely.
yeah, as a manager, I want them to be productive to get the results I need, but I know they can't if they're spending a bunch of time doing something that is not adding value. And I especially dislike it when I know I could clear that roadblock in mere seconds. So asking questions actually to us when we're the individual contributor, when we're the direct, sometimes we're like, oh, they're super busy and they got a lot to do and I really don't want to burden them. And there's all of those things that come with it. And I can completely appreciate that. But no, your manager could quite likely be appreciative of the fact that you asked a question. It's not a weakness. It's not coming across to managers most of the time. Most managers, I should say, most of the time. As though, oh, well, they don't know what they're doing. It's okay. We'd rather you ask questions. It's okay. So, to wrap it all up for this week, organizations exist because we can't do everything ourselves. I mean, if we could do it alone, we'd all be part of a one-person organization working for ourselves. But
Right.
we need each other, clearly. That's the reason we're all working together in this organization. And the more experience we gain, the more we're aware that we'll come across problems, and the less phased we'll become by having to ask for help with those problems that we cannot solve ourselves. And early in your career, it's a good lesson to learn. Just remember to be prepared, ask early so you're not spending a bunch of hours doing something that you can't figure out, and ask for more time than you need. That's the way to successfully ask your manager for help.
Nice.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Sarah.
That's all for this week, folks. Join us again next week with a new topic.
Bye.